on scene of the cardiac arrest.
Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said it was ruled a homicide and they found toxins in her body.
What up, world? Welcome to my behind the scenes of the first thing. Hope you enjoy it.
Peacock documentary, early 2025. The cameras are rolling on Quincy Brown. He's 33 years old. He's the oldest son of Kim Porter, and he's sitting there talking about his mother's death. And then, out of nowhere, with no warning, no buildup, he says 4 words that stop the entire room cold. He says, quote, "They murdered her." And then he catches himself. He looks straight into the camera and he says, am I supposed to say allegedly? That clip went around the world in less than 24 hours. Because here was Kim Porter's own son, the firstborn, the one who had signed an official family statement saying there was no foul play, appearing to confirm on camera on a major streaming documentary that his mother was murdered, and then catching himself like he had just let the truth slip out, like he had been told to stick to a script, but the truth came out anyway. That moment is the reason we're here today.
Miss Porter, how's everything with you?
Great.
Because Kim Porter, one of the most beloved women in hip hop, died on November 15th, 2018 at 47 years old in her bed, 6 days after her first symptom of what doctors called the flu. Her 4 children say it was natural. Her ex-husband, the father of her firstborn, says she was silenced. And the truth, 6 years later, is still buried somewhere between those 2 stories. Today on True Celebrity Stories, we're opening the Kim Porter files, the supermodel who knew everything, the man who loved her first, the man who loved her longest, the book that appeared on Amazon the day after Diddy got arrested, the missing devices, the funeral where the most powerful man in hip-hop wept openly, and the question that refuses to die. Did Kim Porter know too much? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to have to decide what you believe. And I promise you, it's not as simple as it sounds. Let's start with who Kim really was, because before any of this, before the conspiracies, before Diddy, before the documentaries, before the indictments, there was just a girl from Columbus, Georgia, who walked into a room and made everyone in it stop talking. Kimberly Antoinette Porter was born December 15th, 1970, Columbus, Georgia, Black Southern family, strict, faithful, ambitious. Her mother, Sarah, was a teacher. Her father, Jake Porter, was a man Kim adored, and a man we'll come back to because he buried his daughter, and the grief of that almost killed him too. Kim was tall, she was striking. She had that particular kind of beauty that doesn't even need makeup to land. She graduated from Columbus High School in 1988, and right after graduation, she didn't head to college first. She headed to Atlanta. She wanted to model. That was the dream. That was the plan. And in Atlanta in the late 80s, a tall Black girl with cheekbones like that didn't stay unnoticed for long. By the early 90s, Kim was working. Real work. Magazine spreads, catalog campaigns, music videos. She had the look that was about to define a whole decade of Black glamour in hip hop. And then she met him. Albert Joseph Brown III. Stage name, Al B. Sure. He was already a star. Night and Day was a smash. Off on Your Own was a smash. Quincy Jones himself had handpicked Al as the first winner of the Sony Innovators Talent Search back in 1987. Al was 20-something, handsome, polished, signed to Warner Brothers, and when he met Kim, he moved fast. According to Al, in his own words on Fox Soul years later, he physically moved her from Columbus, Georgia to New York. He set her up. He helped launch her career into the next level. They got married in 1989. Quietly. Almost nobody knew. Even the press didn't fully know until decades later when Al said it on camera. He said, quote, "Nobody knew because we didn't discuss being married. We didn't discuss that." In 1991, Kim gave birth to a son. They named him Quincy Taylor Brown, named after Al's mentor, Quincy Jones. The baby was even born on Al's birthday, June 4th. That's the kind of detail you can't make up. The marriage didn't last. By the end of 1990, going into 1991, Kim and Al were over. The divorce was finalized. But here's the thing, they never stopped talking. They co-parented Quincy with what every source describes as genuine love. They stayed close. According to Al, they were still having deep, intimate, soul-level conversations right up until the week she died. Hold on to that detail. It's about to matter. Now we get to 1994, New York City, an industry event. Kim Porter is 23. Sean Combs is 24. He's a hungry young executive at Uptown Records, working under a man named Andre Harrell. Andre is a name you need to know because Andre Harrell is the one who actually hired Kim. Before Kim was Diddy's girlfriend, she was the receptionist at Uptown Records. Andre Harrell put her there. Andre Harrell built Sean Combs into Sean Combs. Andre Harrell discovered him, mentored him, gave him his shot. And then in 1993, Andre fired Sean Combs from Uptown. The reasons are debated to this day. But what isn't debated is what Sean Combs did next. He took the Rolodex, he took the relationships, he took the artists he had been working with at Uptown, and he started Bad Boy Records. And Andre Harrell, the man who created the entire stage on which Diddy became Diddy, would die suddenly at 59 years old in May 2020. Heart failure, according to the official ruling. And Diddy, when he heard the news, said publicly that he, quote, couldn't handle it. That detail is going to come back too, because Andre Harrell isn't the only person in Diddy's orbit who has died young, suddenly, of natural causes. We'll get there. So in 1994, Kim and Sean meet, and they don't just meet, they collide. Both of them have said publicly that there was something between them that was different from anything else they'd ever experienced. They start dating. It's volatile. It's already, from day one, not exclusive. Because Sean Combs in 1994 was already running with multiple women, and Kim knew it, and Kim stayed. In 1998, Kim gave birth to their first child, a son named Christian Casey Combs. Christian would later grow up to be a rapper himself under the name King Combs. But here's the part the public still gets wrong. The same year Kim was pregnant with Christian, Diddy was getting another woman pregnant. Her name was Misa Hilton. Misa gave birth to Justin Dior Combs in December 1993, but the relationship continued past that. Kim knew about Misa. Misa knew about Kim. Both women were essentially on call for the same man. Misa, by the way, is alive today, and she has spoken extensively in 2024 and 2025 about what she saw during her years with Sean. She has been one of the most public defenders of Cassie Ventura. She has hinted on multiple occasions in interviews and on social media that what came out at the federal trial in 2025 was not even the half of it. So when people ask who knew, the answer is a lot of women knew. A lot of women saw. A lot of women stayed quiet. And Kim Porter was at the center of all of it. Kim and Diddy stayed together on and off for 13 years. In 2006, she gave birth to twin girls, Delilah Star Combs and Jesse James Combs. But that same year, the same year she was carrying his twins, Diddy was sleeping with another woman named Sarah Chapman. Sarah got pregnant. She gave birth to a daughter named Chance Combs, also in 2006, same year as the twins. Kim found out. Kim was done. In July 2007, after 13 years of public infidelity, after 13 years of being the woman everyone called his ride or die while he treated her like she was disposable, Kim packed up the kids. All 4 kids, including Quincy, who Diddy had legally adopted years earlier. She walked out. She moved into her own house. She told the world in an Essence magazine interview that she was done. Her exact words. He's not the first man who's cheated. He's not the first man who's had a baby outside his relationship. He's not the originator of this. But at this point in my life, I have girls. Now it's a different program. She said, I wasn't waking up feeling happy. There's no other way to articulate it other than a feeling. I just wasn't feeling it. That's why I had to leave. That interview is one of the most quoted moments in modern hip-hop relationship history because Kim Porter, in public with the entire industry watching, told Sean Combs that he wasn't enough. But here's what makes the story so much more complicated. Kim left in 2007. Kim never actually left. They co-parented constantly. They were photographed together at premieres. They spent holidays together. They went on family vacations together. They posted each other on Instagram. They were each other's plus ones at industry events. Diddy himself, and after her death, wrote on Instagram, and I'm paraphrasing his exact words, "We were more than best friends. We were more than soulmates. We were some other kind of stuff, and I miss you so much. Super Black Love." Whatever this was between them, it was 24 years long, from 1994 to 2018. 24 years of intertwined lives, and during those 24 years, Kim Porter was inside the house. She was at the parties, she was at the studios, she was at the mansions. She was the woman holding court at the Christmas dinners while Diddy worked the room. If anybody on this earth knew the full scale of who Sean Combs really was behind closed doors, it was Kimberly Porter. And then, 6 years before he was finally arrested, she was dead. Now let's talk about what some people saw inside those rooms. Because the federal trial of Sean Combs in 2025 was the most explosive celebrity criminal trial of the decade. The trial began May 5th, 2025 in the federal district court in Lower Manhattan before Judge Arun Subramanian. The prosecution called Cassie Ventura to the stand. Cassie had filed a civil lawsuit back in November 2023 accusing Diddy of years of physical abuse, sexual coercion, and forced participation in events the indictment would later call freak-offs. Diddy had settled that lawsuit in less than 24 hours. But the surveillance video from the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016, the one CNN released in May 2024, had already destroyed any possible defense. The world watched Sean Combs grab Cassie by the neck, throw her down, kick her, and drag her down a hotel hallway. There was no spinning that. The trial brought witnesses, bodyguards, former employees, other women. Kid Cudi himself testified that his Porsche had been firebombed in 2012, allegedly because Diddy found out he was dating Cassie. Federal investigators had connected the dots. The jury heard about freak-offs lasting 72 hours. Hotel rooms with baby oil, drugged escorts, coercion, violence. It was the kind of testimony that, in any normal trial, would have ended in a complete conviction. But on July 2nd, 2025, the jury came back. And the verdict shocked half the country. The jury found Sean Combs not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, not guilty of sex trafficking, guilty only on 2 lesser counts of transportation to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act. On October 3rd, 2025, Judge Subramanian sentenced him to 50 months in federal prison, 4 years and 2 months, plus a $500,000 fine, plus 5 years of supervised release. He's currently serving that sentence at FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey. His appeal is being heard in April 2026. He has reportedly asked President Trump for a pardon, which Trump confirmed publicly on October 7th, 2025. So when people say Diddy was convicted of being a sex trafficker, that is not technically what the jury found. The jury acquitted him of the most serious charges. He was convicted of moving people across state lines for prostitution. That distinction matters legally. But what matters for our story is this. Even with hours of testimony from women describing what they say they survived inside Diddy's world, the jury still didn't fully convict him on the worst charges. So if Kim Porter knew something, anything, that could have changed that outcome, that something never made it to court because she was already dead. Let's go back to November 2018, because the timeline of the last days of Kim Porter is something you need to hear in detail. According to the autopsy report obtained by In Touch and Rolling Stone, this is what happened. October 2018, Kim flies to Africa. It's part fashion trip, part spiritual trip, part work trip. She comes back to Los Angeles in late October. She tells her friends she feels great. No complaints, no symptoms. November 7th, 2018, 8 days before her death. Kim wakes up with a sore throat. She thinks it's just a cold. She calls a physician and asks for azithromycin, which is a common antibiotic. She gets it. She goes about her week, November 12th, 2018. 3 days before her death, the sore throat hasn't gone away. Now she has a fever of 102 degrees. She has nasal congestion. She has body aches. She has a mild cough. She sees the physician again. She gets tested for the flu. Negative. She gets tested for strep. Negative. The doctor gives her a painkiller called Toradol. She gets IV fluids with saline and vitamins. She seems to be stabilizing. November 13th. Kim calls the doctor again. She says she has no appetite. A nurse comes to the house, gives her more fluids and more vitamins. November 14th, 2018, the day before her death. And this is the detail that haunts everybody. Kim's fever has come down to 96 degrees Fahrenheit. That's actually below normal. She tells her family she feels better. She gets a deep tissue massage at home. She has a relaxed evening. She watches movies with the family. She laughs. She seems fine. But she also tells the doctor she had a streak of blood in her phlegm when she coughed. The doctor doesn't escalate. Kim goes to bed at 11:30 p.m. November 15th, 2018. 8:30 in the morning, Kim's goddaughter walks past her bedroom. She sees Kim lying in bed. She assumes Kim is still sleeping after a rough week of being sick. She doesn't go in. 3 hours later, 11:30 a.m. Somebody finally realizes Kim hasn't moved. They call 911. The paramedics arrive within minutes. There is nothing they can do. Kim Porter is pronounced dead at the scene at 11:40 a.m. She is 47 years old. The autopsy is performed the next day, November 16th, 2018, at the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, but the cause of death is initially listed as deferred, pending further investigation. It takes more than 2 months for the official ruling to come out. On January 25th, 2019, the LA County coroner makes it official. Cause of death, lobar pneumonia. Manner of death, natural. The autopsy finds what the report calls febrile purulent effusions, infectious fluids in the chest cavities. There is evidence of pleuritic infection, infection on the surface of the lungs. There is evidence of lobar pneumonia in her lung tissue. The toxicology comes back unremarkable. No drugs, no toxins. Nasopharyngeal swabs come back negative for any virus. On paper, the medical findings match the diagnosis. Lobar pneumonia killed her. Case closed. Except not everybody buys it. Because here's the medical question that no official statement has ever answered cleanly. How does a 47-year-old woman with no underlying conditions, whose fever has come back down to 96 degrees, who is laughing and watching movies the night before, die quietly in her sleep without a single cry for help? Lobar pneumonia can absolutely kill, and it kills tens of thousands of Americans every year. But the typical pattern is rapid deterioration with severe difficulty breathing, with the patient often calling for help or being rushed to the hospital. Kim's pattern, fever spike, fever recovery, sudden silent death, is unusual, not impossible, just unusual, which is exactly the gray zone where conspiracy lives. Now we fast forward to September 16, 2024. 6 years, almost to the day after Kim's death. Federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security arrest Sean Combs at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York City. He is indicted on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and Mann Act violations. The internet explodes, and within 24 hours of the arrest, something appears on Amazon that nobody saw coming. A book. The title is Kim's Lost Words, A Journey for Justice from the Other Side. It's 58 pages. It is credited to Kimberly A. Porter, listed as published posthumously. Within days, it climbs to #1 on Amazon's bestseller list in its category. The book claims to be Kim's personal memoir, allegedly assembled from her private diary entries, allegedly detailing what she saw during her 24 years with Sean Combs. The contents are graphic. It describes drugging. It describes coerced sex. It names other celebrities. It is, in the words of Diddy's attorney, Erica Wolf, quote, fake, offensive, and a fabrication. And here is what we know is true about that book. It is, in fact, fake. A man named Todd Christopher Guz, writing under the pseudonym Jamal T. Millwood, came forward to Rolling Stone within days. He admitted he was the one who published it. He admitted he had received a USB flash drive from 2 anonymous music industry sources. He admitted he could not personally guarantee the book was authentic. The book had typos. It had factual errors that would have been impossible for Kim herself to make about her own life. Kim's longtime friend Kimora Lee Simmons told Rolling Stone that Kim never wrote a book. Kim's personal publicist, LaWanda Lane, confirmed the same. There was no manuscript. There was no publishing deal. There was no memoir. The book was eventually pulled from Amazon. So on the question of the Amazon book, the children are correct, the friends are correct, and Diddy's lawyer is correct. That book is a fraud. But Al B sure has been making a different claim, and that claim is harder to dismiss. September 24th, 2024, 8 days after Diddy's arrest, Kim's 4 children, Quincy Brown, Christian Combs, Delilah Combs, and Jesse Combs, post a joint statement on social media. The statement is firm, unified, and final. They say their parents' relationship is being misrepresented. They say their mother's tragic passing is being weaponized by people with no business speaking on it. They say the cause of death has been long established. There was no foul play. They specifically address the Amazon book. They write, she did not write a memoir, and anyone claiming to have a manuscript is misrepresenting themselves. They write that any so-called friend speaking on behalf of their mother is not a friend, nor do they have her best interests at heart. And they end the statement with a request. Our mother should be remembered for the beautiful, strong, kind, and loving woman she was. Her memory should not be tainted by horrific conspiracy theories. The statement, signed by all 4 of her children, should have ended the conversation. It should have. But within hours, Al B sure went on Instagram and exploded everything. Albert Joseph Brown III had himself nearly died in 2022. He was placed in a medically induced coma for 2 months. Doctors told his family he might not survive. When he woke up, he came out of that coma a different man. He started saying that God had spoken to him. He started saying he had a new mission. And part of that mission, he said, was getting justice for Kim. On September 16th, 2024, the same day Diddy was arrested, Al B sure posted the first of what would become dozens of Instagram statements. He called Kim's death, in his own words, a tragic murder. He wrote that he and Kim had been talking right up until a few days before her death. He wrote that she was in good health. He wrote that they were in a great friend space, reminiscing about old times, celebrating their son Quincy's accomplishments. No affair, just friends. And then he wrote the line that lit the internet on fire. He said, "It is evident that her potential to expose the realities of her personal abuses, being drugged, the sex trafficking and human trafficking she was privy to, akin to the brave actions of Mrs. Ventura, is what led to her being taken before she could complete her true thoughts." In other words, Al B sure said publicly on the record that Kim Porter was about to come forward, like Cassie did, and that she was killed before she could. He didn't stop there. Al B sure also alleged that Kim had been working on real notes, not the Amazon book, real journal entries, private writings, reflections from her 24 years inside Sean Combs' world. He alleged that those notes were stored on her personal devices, her phone, her iPad, her computer. And he alleged that all of those devices, all of them disappeared after her death. He wrote, quote, "Ms. Porter's missing devices, allegedly already in evidence, unquestionably contain the critical evidence that have been concealed." He called for the FBI to open a federal investigation into Kim's death. He named names. He pointed at publicists, handlers, and people in Diddy's inner circle. He accused them of conspiring to silence her. And he said something that nobody had ever said about Diddy's family before. He said his own son, Quincy, the boy he and Kim had together back in 1991, had been psychologically captured by Diddy. He used the hashtag #FreeQuincy. He called Quincy a Stockholm Syndrome victim. For people who don't know, Stockholm Syndrome is the psychological condition where hostages start to defend and identify with their captors. Al B sure was saying on the public record that his biological son, who had been adopted by Diddy as a toddler, who had been raised by Diddy in his houses, who had grown up calling Diddy dad, had been turned against him, his real father, and turned against the truth about his real mother's death. That is not a small accusation to make publicly against your own child. The fact that Al B sure said it anyway tells you exactly how convinced he is. He believes Diddy killed the mother of his son. He believes Diddy then took his son. He believes the entire family is, in his word, captive. Now we come to the Quincy moment, the one that started this whole video. In early 2025, Peacock released a documentary called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy.
Sean Combs is a monster.
The documentary is a deep investigative dive into Diddy's life.
I've known Sean since he was 4 years old. That's my little bro.
His rise, his alleged crimes, and the people who survived him.
He already knew what he wanted.
I could be your manager, just give me a chance.
I went to a lot of puffy parties. These were the parties that you needed exclusive access to get into.
The documentary includes interviews with multiple insiders, including former bodyguards, former employees, former friends.
Something is not right with this.
And importantly, it includes interviews with Al B. Sure. And it includes interviews with Quincy Brown. Quincy is sitting on camera talking about the loss of his mother. He is composed. He is reflective. He is by all accounts handling himself like a man who has had years to process what happened. And then talking about her death, the words come out. They murdered her. He says it cleanly, no tremor, no crying, no second guessing. They murdered her. Then he pauses. The look on his face changes. He looks straight at the camera and he says, am I supposed to say, allegedly? The clip went viral within hours of the documentary's release. It was on every news channel. It was the most clipped moment on TikTok for over a week because here was the contradiction laid bare in real time. The same Quincy who had signed a statement just months earlier saying there was no foul play. The same Quincy who is the oldest of Kim's children, the one who lived through the whole thing, said the word murdered, and then realized on camera that he was supposed to be saying something else. You can interpret that moment however you want. Diddy's legal team interpreted it as defamation. They sued NBC Universal and Peacock for $100 million over the documentary. In April 2026, that lawsuit was dismissed by a New York judge. The judge ruled that since Diddy himself had publicly admitted at his sentencing that he was responsible for ruining his own career, the documentary couldn't be liable for damaging his reputation any further. But the Quincy moment is forever. It exists. It will exist on the internet for as long as the internet does. And Kim Porter's oldest son said on a national documentary that his mother was murdered. Let's deal with the contradiction directly, because the question everyone wants answered is the obvious one. Why are the 4 children saying one thing and Quincy seemingly saying another? Here's the most honest answer anyone can give you. Quincy is in a different position than the other 3. The other 3 children are biologically and legally Diddy's children: Christian, Delilah, Jesse. They are Combs by blood. Their entire identities, their inheritances, their futures are intertwined with the Combs family. They have grown up calling Sean Combs dad, and they are, even after his arrest and conviction, still loyal to him. That loyalty is not a conspiracy, it's family. Quincy is different. Quincy was born to Albie. Sure, Diddy adopted him as a toddler, raised him, gave him the Combs lifestyle, the Combs connections, the Combs world. But biologically, Quincy is not Diddy's son. He is Al B. Sure's son. So Quincy stands on a fault line, loyal to the man who raised him, carrying the blood of the man who is publicly accusing that same man of murdering his mother. Whatever Quincy actually believes, the truth is, his position is impossible. And in that documentary, in that moment, the words came out. Whether they were a slip, a confession, a moment of grief, or a moment of conviction, only Quincy himself knows. But the words came out. Now I need to tell you something about Kim Porter that doesn't fit the conspiracy frame, because it matters. Kim Porter was a star maker. Kim Porter was the kind of woman who built other women's careers behind the scenes. In the early 2000s, Kim co-founded a company called 3 Brown Girls in Atlanta with 2 of her friends from college. The company was a lifestyle and event planning company. It looked on the outside like a Black women's networking circle. But what it actually did behind the scenes was put young Black female artists in front of the right people. One of the artists 3 Brown Girls helped launch was Janelle Monáe. Yes, that Janelle Monáe, the Grammy-nominated genre-defying artist. Before Janelle was Janelle, Kim Porter and her friends had her in front of the right rooms. Kim was friends with Mary J. Blige. Kim was friends with Jennifer Lopez. Kim was friends with Kimora Lee Simmons. Kim was the one who showed up, the one who cooked when somebody was going through a divorce, the one who held the babies when the new mothers needed a break. She was, by every account from the women who actually knew her, the glue. So when we talk about who Kim Porter was, we have to be honest. She was not a passive woman who just happened to be Diddy's girlfriend. She was a powerful woman in her own right. And powerful women, when they die suddenly, attract questions for a reason. Kim's funeral was held at Cascade Hills Baptist Church in Columbus, Georgia on November 24th, 2018. 9 days after she died, hundreds of people attended. Mary J. Blige sang, Usher came, Tyrese came, Missy Elliott came, Diddy gave the eulogy. He stood at the front of that church in front of all 4 of his children, and he wept. He said she was the greatest woman he had ever known. He said she was the love of his life. He said she was the only one who ever truly understood him. People who were there have said it was the most emotionally raw they had ever seen Sean Combs. After the service, Kim was buried at Evergreen Memorial Park, also in Columbus, Georgia. Her father, Jake Porter, stood at the graveside and watched his only daughter go into the ground. According to people close to the family, Jake Porter was never the same after that day. He died of complications from his own grief and declining health within a few years. The Porter family lost the daughter, and they lost the patriarch in close succession. And the question that hangs over Columbus, Georgia to this day is whether Jake Porter, before he died, knew or believed something he didn't say publicly. Because Al B. sure has hinted multiple times that he and Jake had conversations Jake never repeated to anyone else. Now we come to the broader pattern, and I want to be careful here because this is the territory where conspiracy thinking loves to live. But the pattern exists, whether we like it or not. People close to Sean Combs have a habit of dying young. Christopher Wallace, the notorious Big, was murdered in March 1997 in Los Angeles. He was riding in an SUV in a convoy with Sean Combs at the time. Diddy was in the vehicle directly in front. The case has never been officially solved. Russell Poole, the LAPD detective who spent years investigating Biggie's murder, publicly named Sean Combs as a person of interest in connection with the killing. Russell Poole died in 2015. He died of a heart attack while sitting in the office of another detective, talking about the Biggie case. Andre Harrell, the man who built Sean Combs and then fired him from Uptown Records, died suddenly of heart failure at 59 in May 2020. Craig Mack, one of Bad Boy's first signed artists, died in 2018 at 46. Craig had walked away from the music industry years earlier and joined a religious group in South Carolina. Friends say he died believing he had been used and discarded. Black Rob, another Bad Boy artist, died in 2021 at 51. He had spent his last years homeless, living in shelters, despite having generated tens of millions of dollars for the label. He told friends that Diddy had abandoned him. Heavy D, another close associate, died in 2011 of a pulmonary embolism at 44. Each one of these deaths, taken alone, is explainable. People die. Hearts fail. Pneumonia kills. But when you line them up next to each other, when you see how many people in Diddy's orbit are gone, and how many of them died young, suddenly, of natural causes, the pattern starts to look less like coincidence and more like a question that nobody in law enforcement has ever fully been allowed to ask. And Kim Porter is part of that line. Let's be specific about what we know and what we don't, because this is where I have to be honest with you. None of what I just told you, none of the patterns, none of the suspicions, none of Al B. Sure's statements has produced a single piece of physical evidence that Kim Porter was murdered. The autopsy is clean. The toxicology is clean. The medical findings are consistent with lobar pneumonia. There has been no public reopening of her case by the LAPD or the FBI. As of early 2026, multiple sources including TMZ and Rolling Stone have confirmed that no federal investigation into her specific death has been announced. The federal investigations that did happen, the ones that ended with Diddy's conviction in 2025, did not address Kim Porter's death. Cassie Ventura, in her testimony at Diddy's trial, did not name Kim Porter. Other witnesses did not name Kim Porter. So if there is a case, it has not been built yet. And that is the painful truth at the center of this story. The people closest to Kim are split. Her children, the 4 of them, say there was no foul play and they want the world to leave their mother alone. Her ex-husband, the father of her firstborn, says she was murdered and he wants the FBI to reopen everything. Her friends are quiet. Her father is gone. And the official record says she died of pneumonia. That is where the case stands. That is what we know. That is what we don't know. Here is what we don't know. We don't know what was on Kim Porter's personal devices the day she died. We don't know whether her phone, her iPad, and her laptop were preserved, destroyed, or are sitting in someone's possession somewhere. We don't know what private journals she may have written during her 24 years with Sean Combs. We don't know what she told Al B. Sure in those late night conversations in the weeks before she died. We don't know whether the federal investigation into Diddy ever quietly examined Kim's death as a side question, because federal investigations are not public until they produce indictments. We don't know whether Quincy's peacock moment was a slip of the tongue, a flash of buried knowledge, or a flash of grief. And we don't know if the truth, whatever it is, will ever come out in our lifetime. The questions live in the gap between two stories. The official story, the natural one, the one signed by 4 children, and the other story, the one whispered by an ex-husband who came out of a coma believing he had been saved for a reason. I want to leave you with 2 more details before we close. The first is about the twins. Delilah Starr Combs and Jesse James Combs were born on November 21st, 2006. They were 12 years old when their mother died. They are 19 years old today, in 2026. These are young women who have lived their entire conscious lives in the shadow of 2 of the biggest media storms of the century: their mother's sudden death, their father's federal trial, the Cassie video, the conspiracy theories in the book on Amazon, Quincy on the documentary. They were 17 when their father got arrested. They watched him get walked out of a hotel in handcuffs on national television. They watched the surveillance video of him assaulting his ex-girlfriend. They watched their family name become a punchline on the internet. And in the middle of all of that, they were asked as teenagers to publicly defend their mother's official cause of death. Whether they wrote that statement themselves or were coached into it, we will probably never know. But on Mother's Day in 2024, before their father's arrest, the twins posted a tribute to Kim on Instagram. They wrote about her unique spirit. They wrote about the joy she brought into every room. They wrote that they were lucky to have been raised by her. And that post got over 1 million likes. Whatever the truth of Kim's death is, those girls lost their mother. That part is real. That part isn't a theory. The second detail is about Quincy. In September 2025, just before Diddy was sentenced, Quincy Brown posted a tribute to his mother on Instagram. He wrote about missing her every day. He wrote about wishing she could see how the family had grown. He wrote about wishing she was here to help them through what was coming. And then he wrote a sentence that, depending on how you read it, is either a son's grief or a son's promise. He wrote, "Mama, I hope wherever you are, you know the truth finally came out. We love you, and we're not done yet. We're not done yet." 3 words. The truth finally came out. 5 words. The post racked up millions of engagements. Some people read it as Quincy talking about Diddy's conviction. Some people read it as Quincy talking about something bigger. Some people read it as Quincy promising his mother that her story isn't over. Whatever Quincy meant, those words are out there. And if you put them next to the peacock moment, the murdered her moment, you start to understand why so many people refuse to let this case go. Kim Porter died on November 15th, 2018. She was 47 years old. She was the mother of 4. She was the love story of one of the most powerful men in modern hip hop. She was, by every account, a woman who knew everything and said almost nothing. Whether she died of pneumonia or whether she died because she was about to talk, we do not know. But she is not coming back. And the file, no matter what the 4 children say, does not appear to be closed. So tell me, do you believe her 4 children when they say there was no foul play? Or do you believe the man who loved her first when he says she was silenced? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.